3, 2, 1, go. Hello everyone, we are PhosGel and this is our opportunity presentation. Today I'm joined here with my team, Yashica, John, Jerry, and Fedua, with our executives being Bob and Karina. Phosphate pollution is the most widespread water quality problem faced in the U.S. per the EPA, but this is not just a problem in the U.S. This extends to the rest of the world, especially in locations like Australia and New Zealand. However, we have a paradox in our hands. This solution isn't as easy as removing the phosphate. This is because phosphate is an essential component of the fertilizers that grow our crops and feed our expanding population. However, stormwater over time washes away this phosphate-rich fertilizer into our drinking water reservoirs and recreation bodies, whereas a similar growth effect that leads to harmful algal blooms that damage our ecosystems through toxic byproducts, including inducing mass fish kills, contaminating our water supply, and limiting economic activity such as recreation closures and reduced tourism. Now that we understand the phosphate paradox, let's look at the scale of the problem. A national map of phosphate-impaired lakes shows a clear pattern, with the Midwest and Florida being the most heavily affected. And nearly half of all U.S. lakes fall into the category of poor water quality due to excess phosphate pollution, which translates to about 133,000 lakes in the U.S. alone that are unsafe for human use and ecological health. Yet despite this massive footprint, less than 2% of these lakes receive any phosphorus treatment. Why is this? This is because most efforts focus on preventing phosphate runoff and not treating pollution once it enters the water. And the few treatment technologies that do exist require extremely large material inputs, meaning high labor demands, heavy transportation requirements, and a significant carbon footprint. Together, these factors make treatment costly and logistically difficult, discouraging meaningful action at the state and local level. So we have a massive problem with a limited set of solutions here. This is where we come in. Introducing PhosGel, a hydrogel-based phosphate inactivator deployed across the surface of lakes via boats that pulls phosphate ions directly from the water. And PhosGel captures 8 times more phosphate than the leading competitors, and as the first regenerable surface water phosphate inactivator, it can be reused up to 50 times. By addressing the major limitations that current solutions place in the market, those being high material use, heavy labor, and large transportation needs, PhosGel makes treating many more lakes both realistic and affordable. From our voice of stakeholder interviews, we've identified 5 critical criteria that matter most to customers when selecting a technology: efficiency, non-toxic materials, affordability, regenerability, and range of applications. When we compare our current options, most existing products meet no more than 2 of these needs. In contrast, PhosGel is the only solution that satisfies all 5 of these critical criteria. With competitors falling short, it becomes clear that why about only 2% of lakes receive treatment today, and it's because current products simply aren't capable of meeting the market's needs. Now, let's look at how PhosGel could perform in a real-world scenario. Lake Okareka in New Zealand used PhosGel to treat phosphorus pollution, and this project required around 150,000 pounds of material and cost about 120,000 to manufacture before transportation and labor costs. Now, imagine if Lake Okareka had been able to contract with PhosGel's solution. Because PhosGel captures 8 times more phosphate, we would only need about 20,000 pounds of material instead of the 150,000. Manufacturing that amount would cost just $35,000, making us 4 times more cost-effective and dramatically less material intensive. And in addition, the benefits just keep getting better with us. PhosGel had to be spread across 3 annual applications due to the material demands and the way phosphorus continues to be released from sediments over time. And when PhosGel comes into the equation, we change that. With our high binding capacity and the first regenerable phosphorus inactivator, reusable up to 50 times, PhosGel enables treatment plans that can be completed in a single deployment rather than stretched over 3 years. This means faster results, lower costs, significantly reduced labor and transportation and carbon footprint. Now, to give you a visual representation of how PhosGel compares to PhosLock, I use these images of Diet Coke to compare what an 8 times size difference looks. So on the left we have PhosGel, and on the right we have PhosLock. And I don't know about you, but this is a huge difference to me. And if my Diet Coke was 8 times as small and cost 4 times as much, I probably wouldn't buy it at all either. As we've seen, only a fraction of phosphate-encoded lakes are being treated, and the main barrier to this is due to cost. And with PhosGel, we unlock this part of the market due to its flexibility. Because our material is around 8 times more efficient, we can charge a premium per pound and still deliver significant savings to our end customers. This table outlines our cost of goods, what the customer would pay, the selling price, and our profit margin in regard to Lake Okareka. And in here, we present multiple prices because we want to understand how the customer will respond to different selling points, as this is a niche and unique market. And even at our highest tier, 6 times the cost of PhosLock, we reduce material costs by about 25% for a project like Lake Okareka. This doesn't even include transportation, labor, and the regenerability aspect of our technology, which would both sharply decrease the cost induced on the customer and us. In short, we offer customers a more affordable treatment while giving strong, flexible margins that can be tailored to the scale and characteristics of each project.
So we're looking at a B2B business model. So the supply chain is not fully established because, as we've stated before, this market has not been fully active due to the limited current solutions. So this is where we anticipate fitting in with the existing system. So first, a lake is going to be identified as needing treatment for excess phosphate, and whoever manages the lake, and in our case we're assuming that it's probably going to be a governmental body, will hire contractors to deploy some sort of treatment to the lake. And the contractors are going to buy that treatment from distributors, and we want the chosen treatment to be our product, PhosGel, which distributors can buy sold in bags, which is how PhosLock is currently sold. So it would be an analogous selling mechanism. And we plan to outsource the manufacturing to manufacturing companies, and we will provide them with the specifications on how we want the product and have them make it for us, and then we will sell it to the distributors. So with regard to market entry, we received an example from VOS about Jordan Lake, which is close to home, so it's a good example to look at. So first of all, how a lake receives treatment is that the regulatory bodies that monitor the lakes will identify that a lake needs treatment. So for example, with Jordan Lake, the DEQ identified that the phosphate levels had reached an excess, and so the General Assembly proposed various solutions on what possible treatments would be available for Jordan Lake in its current condition. So then the DEQ had some discussions and looked at the propositions provided by the General Assembly, and they ended up choosing PhosLock to treat Jordan Lake, and then the General Assembly paid for the PhosLock inactivation for PhosLock treatment for Jordan Lake. So that is how a lake will end up getting treated. And in order for the General Assembly to consider us as one of the treatment options for the lake, we'd want to network and make our name known with these regulatory bodies and government agencies. So we'd offer presentations and demonstrations to show that our product is safe, which is probably their first priority, and efficient. And after that, we would want to run a pilot trial on a small water body to just prove that we do what we say we do, so that we're credible. And hopefully after that, they're gonna like what they see and want to create plans with us to address the lakes that are in most immediate need. So for our pilot project, we anticipate that the main expenditures will be, of course, the cost of goods, research and development for the deployment method, which we're still kind of working on, and then the deployment itself. and then regulatory and technical advisory, and then monitoring. So that comes up to a total of about 29K to 36K. So that's what we're anticipating as the cost for our pilot project, which we wouldn't be doing as for a profit. This would just be to kind of establish and get our name out there. And then after that, we are going to be able to do what we want to do. And so we've taken into consideration the number of polluted lakes, their average size, and the average amount of excess phosphate in them that would need to be removed. And once we tally all that together, based on the median price point of our products, we have calculated the target market and the service addressable market. And because the current solutions are so limited and they are not used so prevalently throughout the United States, we have some room to step in and really drive exponentially the growth in this market. So we calculated a $177 billion global market estimation for the phosphate remover market. And we really think that we can make this market grow. So looking at our revenue ramp, after year 5, after 5 years of adoption, we would aim for 10% of the market share, which puts us at $47 million. And our next steps would be to first raise funding to, achieve our pilot trial. So we'd want to apply to grants and attend pitch competitions. And after that, we'd want to conduct more research and development and validation to A, solidify our deployment method, and B, actually carry out that pilot project that we were talking about. And then after that, we'd want to continue